Have you ever wondered what life was like in the Ottoman Empire? Join me as we dive into the fascinating history of the sultans and their world. Daily life immersion, homes, markets, and the rhythm of Daisy. Imagine yourself standing in a narrow lane of a town within the Ottoman fold. The sun has not yet climbed high. The light is soft, draping the stone and plaster in a warm, forgiving color. The air holds a mixture of scents, the faint sweetness of dried figs piled on a low stall, the yeasty warmth leaking from a bakery oven, the clean mineral temps of water from a nearby fountain. Footsteps are muffled on the cobbles. A cat slips along a low wall, eyes half-lidded. In a few moments, the small orchestra of daily life will begin. A quiet cry of a child, the clink of copper bowls, the measured voice of a shopkeeper calling out wares. For many, this is the beginning of a day that will be ordinary in its essentials and quietly full in its textures. Homes, the heartbeat of daily life. Most people in the Ottoman Empire, whether in town or country, measured their lives in rooms and courtyards. Imagine walking through the low threshold into a family home. The world outside is bright and busy. Inside, the air is cooler, shaded by the overhangs and the thick plaster walls. Houses are arranged around a central courtyard in many places, a small, private world open to the sky. A well or water cistern may sit in one corner, its surface disturbed occasionally by the dip of a pitcher. Vines might climb a trellis, their leaves whispering when a breeze passes. There is a sense of shelter here. The courtyard moderates the heat and keeps noise at bay. Rooms are simple and purposeful. A low divan runs along a wall where people sit, knit, and talk. Rugs are layered on the floor. Their patterns and colors are chosen both for beauty and for the comfort of bare feet. Light enters through small windows and a wooden door with a lattice screen, casting soft patterns that move as the sun shifts. Furniture is modest, a trunk for storage, a small table for meals, brass dishes stacked with care. The scent of cooking spices, simmering lentils, and roasted grain settles into the fabric and the rugs, so that the house itself remembers food. Familiars are often extended. Children, grandparents, uncles, and cousins could all live within the same compound or cluster of houses. This closeness shapes daily routines. Meals are communal, chores are shared, and the sound of multiple voices slowly knitting into a household hum is constant. In rooms where smoke from a low hearth curls upward, youngsters learn to sit patiently and watch as bread is prepared by practiced hands. The presence of elders, with the soft cadence of their speech, gives days a sense of continuity and care. Water and washing. The everyday ritual water is central to daily rhythms. Public fountains and wells punctuate neighborhoods. Their stone basins are polished by centuries of hands. Imagine a woman carrying a clay jug back to the courtyard, balancing it steadily on her hip, the water sloshing quietly with each step. Washing takes place in stages, clothes beaten on a stone, in a stream or at a communal washhouse, hands and faces rinsed at small basins throughout the day. Bathing habits vary. Hammams or public baths are places of warm steam, slow scraping, and gentle conversation. The hammam is both practical and social, a place where the day's dirt is shed, and where voices, in the softened acoustics of tiled rooms, exchange news and small confidences. Cooking scent time, and the short pause between tasks. Imagine a hearth where a copper pot simmers gently, its lid tapping soft rhythms. Cooking is a measured, slow art. Stews and pilavs are prepared in stages. Onions gently browned, spices warmed to release their aromas, grains rinsed and set to swell. Many homes use a single, steady flame that transforms water to steam and raw grain to nourishing food. Bread, a center of daily life, is kneaded with rhythmic motions, left to rest, and then slapped thin onto hot stones, or placed in a clay oven. Freshly baked bread is wrapped in cloth, steam rising like a small cloud as it cools. These domestic scenes are calm by design. The preparation of sustenance is as much about patience and timing as it is about ingredients. Meals are communal and conversational. Families gather on low tables or on rugs spread with platters, sharing small dishes of pickled vegetables, yogurt, olives, and fragrant stews. Eating together is a quiet ceremony. The clink of spoons and the soft murmur of voices tie people together. Evenings often close with sweet tea, poured carefully into small tulip-shaped glasses that catch the last light. The market, a slow tapestry of trade and voices. Now imagine stepping out into a market. The lane widens and opens into a bazaar, long covered street where merchants display their goods. Stalls are shaded by woven awnings. Strings of dried peppers and hanging brass lamps sway slightly in a soft breeze. The sounds here are steady, not harsh. The rolling murmur of bargaining, the rhythmic tapping of a cobbler shaping leather, the metallic chime as coins move between fingers. Markets are organized by craft and by need. There are places for textiles, where bolts of cloth are rolled and unrolled, colors catching the light deep indigo, soft saffron, the warm brown of wool. Nearby are stalls of spices, each kept in small pyramids or bowls. Lean in and you sense the layered scent of cumin, sumac, cinnamon, and dried flowers. Spices are handled with care, scooped into paper cones, tied in small cloth bundles, measured for a household's week or a traveler's needs. Vendors speak in practiced tones, offering measured descriptions rather than loud boasts. They will unfurl a bolt of cloth, letting its weight settle into your hand. They will describe the weave and the dye with a soft expertise. People move with purpose through the bazaar, selecting, comparing, and often stopping to share a tale or a bit of gossip. The market is not only a place of commerce, it is a place of social weaving, where neighbors meet and where the day's news is exchanged. Craft and work. The rhythm of hands craftsmanship defines much of daily work. Imagine a workshop where a blacksmith's hammer falls with calm certainty, each strike a measured part of a larger pattern. Sparks rise like tiny, controlled suns and then fade. Or picture a weaver at a loom, feet pressing pedals, hands guiding threads to form a repeating pattern. The loom's steady clack becoming almost a lullaby. These trades are learned in apprenticeship, over years, where repetition is the teacher and patience is the curriculum. Workdays are structured by the nature of the craft. Artisans in the city may work long hours, but their labor is punctuated by rituals. A cup of coffee shared under an awning, a quiet pause to attend to prayer, the midday break under a shaded doorway. Farmers on the plains follow the sun. In the fields, the rhythm is seasonal, planting in spring, tending in summer, harvesting in autumn. The land sets its own timetable, and people adapt to it with a practiced calm. The smell of cut grain in the air, the soft rustle of leaves, the low, constant hum of insect life. These form the background for days shaped by soil and weather, children and learning. Quiet steps toward knowledge. Children are present in every scene, and their learning is woven into daily activity. Imagine a small boy trailing an elder to the market, eyes bright with the sight of colors and shapes, learning the names of goods and the cadence of transactions. Girls may learn to spin, to sew, to cook at an early age, hands guided by patient supervision. Education varies widely. In towns, some children attend mektebs, primary schools, often attached to mosques, where they learn reading, basic arithmetic, and the recitation of religious texts. Those who go further may study at madrasas, where learning is slower, done by rote and reflection. In many households, learning comes from listening, to storytelling in the evening, to the folding of language in poetry, to the quiet repetition of religious phrases. Religious life, soft bells and measured prayer. Religion is woven into daily hours, like a faint thread holding a fabric together. The call to prayer rises from minarets, a melodious voice echoing across roofs, reaching into courtyards and gardens. It is not abrupt or alarming. It settles gently into the day. People pause for prayer, removing shoes and arranging themselves. On rugs, the act of prayer, a steadying motion that punctuates work and rest. Religious festivals and holy days create a different pace. Communal feasts, modest pilgrimages to local shrines, and the exchange of food and goodwill. Festivals and celebrations, gentle rises in the rhythm. Festivals are interludes, breaths that expand the daily routine. Imagine a neighborhood preparing for a wedding, houses swept clean, small lanterns hung in doorways, the air touched with the scent of special sweets. Music is present, but measured. The beats are gentle rather than startling. Feasts bring family and neighbors together. Gifts are exchanged in modest piles. Even in times of scarcity, communities find small ways to mark seasons. A shared loaf, a day set aside for storytelling, a prayer offered for rain. These moments remind people of connection and continuity. Clothing and texture, the daily armor, maps, social and climatic needs. Fabrics are chosen for their practicality as much as for their beauty. In summer, breathable linens and light cottons gather the heat and release it. In winter, layered wool and felt trap warmth. Imagine the soft weight of a woven shawl draped over shoulders in the evening, or the careful knot of a turban at the start of a day. Clothing is also an expression of identity. Dyed weaves, embroidered hems, and specific cuts can mark region, profession, or rank. Yet most dress remains modest and functional, shaped by climate, craft, and custom. Health, illness, and care. The quiet work of healing health occupies a quiet corner of daily life. Remedies are often homemade, poultices of herbal infusions, boiled broths, and the steady ministrations of family members. Midwives and herbalists are practiced in their arts, offering measured comfort and practical guidance. When illness spreads, the community's response is pragmatic and reserved. People adjust routines, reduce social gatherings, and offer care within households. Large-scale epidemics do occur, and they change life's rhythms in solemn ways. But in day-to-day experience, care is often attentive and intimate, rather than institutional. Transportation and movement. Slow journeys travel within the empire is typically slow and deliberate. In cities, people move on foot or on the back of a donkey for short distances. For longer travel, caravans and ships are the steady arteries that connect regions. Imagine a caravan's slow procession through a valley, pack animals stepping in, patient rhythm, the caravanserai at night offering a courtyard and a bowl of soup. Travel is an extended kind of patience. You set your pace to the terrain and to the animals. The world feels larger and smaller at once. Large because distances stretch. Small because the routes and resting places repeat familiar comforts. Seasons and the year. Time marked by nature. The year structures life. Spring is planting and hope. Summer is tending and measure. Autumn is harvest and the communal sharing of yield. And winter is the season of mending and closer household gatherings. Each season has its own work and its own quiet pleasures. In spring, the scent of damp earth and new grass fills the air. In winter, the hush of snow or cold winds brings more indoor conversation and slower rhythms. People learn to expect and adapt. The calendar of life is a soft map of recurring tasks and celebrations, neighborhoods, and social fabric. The weave of community neighborhoods are small ecosystems. Imagine a cluster of homes arranged around a common courtyard or a street, where doors open onto one another's lives. There is an intimacy in proximity. Neighbors exchange food and favors, watch over children, and share in both sorrows and small joys. Social norms emphasize reciprocity and mutual support. Disputes are often settled by elders or by community councils. Justice is local and practical. Within the weave of community life, there is both privacy and shared obligation, a balance that keeps daily living steady. Silences and small joys, where the day softens evenings, are full of small quiet pleasures. The hush after dusk is a particular kind of softness. Lamps are lit, shadows settle, and voices lose their daytime sharpness. Families gather to recount small happenings. The baker brought extra sesame today. The child learned a new line of poetry. This is the grain of ordinary life. Small details observed and remembered. The world settles into a gentle pattern, and the body follows, slowing its steps. A note on hardship, calm truth, gentle language. It is important to acknowledge that not all days were easy. Hardship existed in the form of poor harvests, sudden illness, and the anxieties of a life dependent on seasons and markets. These realities will touch our narrative at times, but always in a restrained way. Where sorrow and suffering appear, we will describe their consequences calmly. The empty bowl, the quiet seat left unused, the absence at a door. We will avoid graphic detail and instead attend to the lived experience, the practical adjustments, the small acts of care, and the ways communities responded. This is how people lived through difficulty, with steady hands, pragmatic fixes, and the slow work of rebuilding. The closing of segment 1. The simple continuity of ordinary days as you imagine this household and this market. Notice the soft repetition that runs through everything. The same small acts, fetching water, kneading dough, weaving cloth, offering a cup of tea, repeat across days and years. This repetition is not monotony, but a kind of anchor. It holds people through change. It creates a sense of safety and continuity. Soon, we will shift our focus slightly. From these close, ordinary scenes, we will move to a single life or event that brings into focus the broader forces at work across the empire. A life that reflects the textures we've just explored, but adds a layer of personal journey. For now, let the images of the courtyard, the market stall, the loom, and the shared meal rest softly in your mind. Feel the slow cadence of those small moments match your own breathing. Let them lull you a little more deeply. When you are ready, Take a slow, full breath and release it. Stay relaxed. When you type continue, we will move into segment 2 and follow the path of one life or event that helps illuminate a larger story within the Ottoman world. Biography, event, the quiet life of Hazen, an Aleppo silk merchant. Imagine yourself at the edge of a wide sun-baked courtyard in Aleppo. The courtyard belongs to a narrow house with high walls and a small latticed window that looks onto the street. A man sits cross-legged on a low cushion, a folded cloth spread across his knees. Small coils of silk thread lie beside him, like muted ribbons of light. His name is Hazen. He is not famous in histories printed in large type. His life is one of steady motion, small decisions, and the long patience of trade. Yet through his routine, you can feel the pulse of an empire, its connections, its comforts, its uncertainties. This is not a great drama. It is a string of days and seasons, mornings counting threads, afternoons on caravans that move like slow, reliable stitches. Between cities, evenings spent with family and accounts. Listen for the steady thud of repetitive tasks and the hush of careful negotiations. These are the scaffolding of a life in which commerce ties distant places together. An early thread, family and apprenticeship. Hazen is born into a family of modest means. The house is simple but clean. The courtyard is shaded with a fig tree whose leaves set a soft pattern of light on the plaster. From childhood he learns to move with care, to hold a spool so the thread won't snag, to fold cloth without creasing, to count pieces by feel. These early lessons are taught gently, in the cadence of hands showing hands, of an elder saying, "Fold like this. Keep your breath even." The lesson repeats over and over until muscle remembers what the eye in the hand first learned. By adolescence, Hazen becomes an apprentice in a silk workshop. Apprenticeship is a gradual rhythm rather than an abrupt change. He wakes early to fetch warm water, helps light the braziers, and arranges the store so that bolts of silk are kept clean and dry. His master is a calm man who speaks in short, steady phrases and believes in slow schooling. Hazen watches the master's fingers as they test the weave, pressing the cloth to daylight to judge the dye. He learns about quality in the quiet language of texture, a warp that holds like a promise, a weft that slips with the right resistance. Over years, the apprentice becomes a journeyman and then a trusted merchant in training. The caravan and the long, slow roads, the heart of Hazen's adult life is travel. Imagine the morning when he prepares to join a caravan bound for Bursa, a city famed for its silk. He ties a small bundle of possessions, wraps bolts of cloth in oiled leather to protect them from dust, and steps into a lane where the air already tastes of herbs. The caravan is a measured procession, animals steady, drivers speaking in low voices as they lead their mounts over rutted paths. The caravan moves according to a geography older than most city walls. It follows water and shade, crossing plains, and winding through passes where the wind is cool and slow. Travel is patient work. Days are long but gentle in their repetition. The tap of hooves on packed earth, the small rituals of unrolling a sweating blanket, the comforting, shared evening meal in a caravanserais, are rest houses spread along trade routes. Imagine one at dusk. A large, square courtyard where tired animals are bedded down, where a single lamp glows near a well, and where merchants fold their legs beneath themselves to eat a warm stew. Conversations are soft, revolving around routes, weather, and the quality of goods. The caravanserai provides safety and a rhythm. You travel in measured stages, and your night always ends at a familiar stone threshold. Letters and credit. Gentle certainty in paper. One of the quieter marvels of Hazen's world is the way trust moves with ink. He does not carry all his capital in coin. Instead, he uses letters of credit and bills drawn on trusted merchants in other cities. Imagine a thin, folded paper sealed with a familiar hand, a promise written in compact script that says, in effect, deliver this sum on proof of identity. These papers travel faster than animals. They allow Hazen to buy silk in Bursa and sell it in Aleppo without packing all his fortune into cloth. The system requires reputation, slow cultivation of trust, and careful attention to names and marks. Hazen learns to read those papers with the same quiet care he uses to judge a bolt of silk. Each signature, each fold, each stamped impression is a thread that links houses and markets across distance. Markets and middlemen. The art of quiet. Hazen returns to Aleppo with a covered cart. The market receives him with the same steady interest as always. He opens the cloth and lays out his bolts on a low trestle. Buyers come in small groups. A merchant from the port runs his hand over a piece of silk, noting the sheen. An upholsterer checks the density. A dyer asks about the source of the thread. Negotiation here is a slow, polite exchange. People test cloth by touch and by folding it to see how it falls. Hasten offers small cups of coffee, pours them with a steady hand, and listens. Much of his art is in timing. The pause before offering a discount, the suggestion of a different bolt to suit a customer's need. The modest revelation of a treasure piece when it is most likely to be appreciated. Middlemen and brokers, known in various local terms, smooth these exchanges. They are the social lubricants of trade. People who know the routes and the names, who can arrange storage, who help to carry goods across borders. They move like invisible hands through the market, connecting Hazen's bolts to a furniture workshopper to a wealthy household commissioning garments. Family and the household. Ledger home life and business are not separate spheres for us. They are woven. In the evenings, the household gathers. Women in the family might be involved in finishing touches, stitching hems, adding subtle embroidery, advising on color choices based on requests from customers. Children run small errands, learning the names of dyes and materials. The ledger, a simple book with lines marked in careful hand, becomes a private chronicle. In it, Hassan records purchases, credits, and the occasional loss to bad weather or delayed shipments. These pages are kept with care. They are more than numbers. They are a history of seasons and decisions, a map of effort and small payoffs. Faith, charity, and the practice of Waqf Hazen and his family are part of broader social institutions that moderate wealth and create social safety nets. One such institution is the Waqf, a kind of religious endowment. A Waqf might fund a fountain, a school, or a soup kitchen. Imagine Hazen walking past a small fountain in the market, cool water tumbling into a basin, knowing that it is maintained by a Waqf, set up by a wealthy family, generations earlier. These endowments give the city a slow continuity. Hazen contributes modestly to religious festivals and to the maintenance of the local prayer room. These acts are not ostentatious. They are steady commitments that keep neighborhoods functioning and provide a gentle, shared responsibility for public goods, the state and taxation. Quiet presence. The Ottoman state is a constant presence, not always visible but felt in patterns of taxation and regulation. Picture an official who visits the market to inspect scales and measures, ensuring fairness by a ruler's standards. Taxes are paid in both coin and in kind. Sometimes the burden feels light and manageable. Sometimes a poor harvest or an increase in tariffs tightens margins. Hasten keeps his accounts with a calm, pragmatic mind. He knows that political shifts can reach him slowly. A new tax farmholder might be more demanding, or a conflict far away may increase the cost of moving goods. The state is one thread in a larger weave, and Hazen's work is to adapt when that thread shifts. Slow adaptations, competition and change. Trade brings adaptation. Hazen learns to diversify. If silk imports become costly, he might trade in fine wool or in dyes. He maintains contacts in port towns and with shipowners who can move goods by sea when land routes seem uncertain. He watches for new tastes among urban elites. A particular shade becomes fashionable, and he must find the dye. Slow changes in taste and infrastructure gradually reshape his work. He responds by cultivating new partnerships, sometimes sending a son to learn bookkeeping in a port city, or investing in a new loom to expand his capacity. The pace of change is gentle, but constant. The quiet risks, whether piracy and disease trade, always carries risk. But Hazen knows to face it as a part of life. Storms that delay ships, a caravan slowed by rain, or an outbreak of illness that keeps customers away. These events alter plans and tighten the household's breathing for a season. They do not always end a life's work. In these times, resilience matters. Hassan relies on credit extended by trusted friends, on the goodwill of neighbors, on a frugal household economy. He is careful to avoid dramatic language in his own accounting. He speaks of a slow year or less trade rather than catastrophes. This pragmatic language mirrors how people actually live with uncertainties, by steady management and small, cumulative adjustments. A season of plenty, and the pleasure of craft. There are seasons when trade is prosperous. Imagine a spring when silk arrives in abundance and the colors shine. Hazen feels a quiet satisfaction as his bolts move quickly. A bride's family orders cloth for a wedding. An upholsterer commissions coverings for a new settee. A shipper prepares a crate for a distant port. The household cooks celebratory meals, rice with lentils and sweetened dried fruit, and neighbors stop by with small gifts. In these months, The rhythm of life seems particularly aligned. Supplies meet demand. The ledger looks healthy, and there is a comfortable sense that the years of careful work have paid a modest dividend. Parenting and training the next Threadhazen thinks of legacy in everyday terms. He hopes to teach his sons the trades of negotiation, measurement, and the quiet virtues of reputation. He may also set aside part of his modest wealth as the down payment for his daughter's marriage, handled in the customary way. These arrangements are not dramatic. They are slow scaffolding for the next generation. The children learn from observation. How Hazen ties a bundle, how he pours coffee for a buyer, how he folds a receipt and tucks it into a ledger. The family's continuity is made of small, repeated acts that pass skill as sound passes through a room. A shifting horizon, ports, empires, and distance in time. Larger patterns touch Hazen's life more noticeably. Sea trade grows in importance. Ports exchange more goods with distant markets. Political pressures in Europe and Persia alter demand and supply. These changes are not sudden. They move like clouds that slowly reshape the light. Hazen pays attention to reports from mariners and to news that reaches the market. He learns that keeping flexible ties and cultivating modest reserves allows him to weather these shifts. The empire's vast geography is both opportunity and constraint. For Hazen, it is a map of familiar routes, resting places, and known faces. Evenings, and the slow accounting of a day at the end of a day, Hazen sits once more in his courtyard. The fig tree shakes a few leaves against the plaster, and the small lamp on the table casts a warm, constant circle. He counts the day's small gains and notices the places where a step was hesitant. He sharpens a pencil and records notes in the ledger. The rhythm of his breath matches the steady, small lamp flame. He hums a line of a folk song without meaning, a tune that threads through market mornings and caravan nights. This is the private end to a public life. Domestic.com and reflective. A quiet legacy. Hazen's life is not a headline. It is one long, deliberate accumulation of trusted ties and careful practice. Through him, silk from distant mulberry trees reaches a couch in a home across the sea. Through him, a daughter's wedding dress is stitched. Through him, the city's bazaar keeps its steady hum. The empire's map is lived in such daily loops of work and care. Each bolt he sells, each letter he signs, each coin he counts, is a small stitch in a vast fabric. Gentle reflection on broader forces as you imagine Hazen walking slowly through the market at dawn. Remember how many other lives mirror his in different materials and in different towns. A copper worker in Bursa, a merchant in Salonika, a rope maker near Izmir. Each life carries the same patient motifs. Apprenticeship, travel, trust, ledger, household, adaptation. The empire's vastness is not an abstract number. It is dozens of courtyards, hundreds of caravanserais, and thousands of quiet ledgers, kept by hands that learned their trade by repetition. The everyday consequences of big events, occasionally larger events, a treaty, a new tax, the shifting of a sea route, move through these small rhythms. Imagine a report that a particular port will increase duties. Hazen's reaction is practical. He adjusts prices, seeks a new buyer, perhaps ships a smaller parcel. He does not act with panic. He acts with experience. These small decisions, multiplied across many merchants, gradually shift the economic map of the empire. The story of empire is thus both top-down and bottom-up. Governors issue decrees, but men like Hazen translate those decrees into daily practice, smoothing the edges with negotiation and patient adaptation. As this portrait of Hazen settles, allow it to rest beside the images from the first segment. The courtyard, the market stall, the hummed tunes at dusk. Hazen's life is a deepening of the themes we already know. Repetition, slow learning, the quiet art of trust. Notice the familiar phrases again, the rhythm of their lives. The slow stitch of trade, the comforting repetition of household tasks. These are the same melodic patterns that hold a community together. Mystery, archaeology, and the quiet traces of culture. Imagine yourself walking slowly along a narrow lane where the stones have settled into worn, comfortable shapes. The air is cool and carries a faint echo of other footsteps, many of them older than the houses themselves. Beneath your feet and beneath the visible city is a layered record, like the rings of a tree or the pages of a book pressed flat. In this segment, we move gently beneath the obvious, into objects, into ruins, into fragments of text and tune that survive like small beacons. We will listen for the hush of the past, communicated through pottery, tile, manuscript, and melody. Clues that are always partial, always a little mysterious, and always quietly human. Archaeology, as slow listening archaeology, is a kind of slow listening. Imagine archaeologists as careful listeners who remove the noise of later years to hear an older voice. Their work is methodical. They cut with trowel instead of spade. They sift soil through fine meshes, and they map finds like constellations. Each layer of earth tells a small, patient story, a broken bowl in one, a foundation in another, a coin in the next. Stratigraphy, the science of layers, is like reading a city's diary. The newest entries sit on top, the oldest peel outward, beneath them. When excavators open a site, they do not simply reveal monuments. They reveal daily choices, where a family swept their corner, where children played with clay toys, where a pot was mended and set aside. Imagine a shard of pottery retrieved from a courtyard. It may be small, its glaze worn smooth by generations of fingers, but it bears a fingerprint of use. Soot from cooking, a scratch from a spoon, a smudge of olive oil. From that shard we infer routines. What was cooked, how often, which households could afford glazed ware, which repaired by binding with string. The past speaks in fragments, and the art of listening is to assemble those fragments into a calm, plausible picture without forcing it into a single dramatic narrative. Tiles and ceramics. Color as tiles and ceramics are among the most eloquent objects the Ottoman world left behind. Imagine a sheet of Iznik tile. Its blue is not raw but tempered, a blue that holds quiet depth like the sky after rain. Motifs of tulips, carnations, and stylized foliage drift across the surface, painted in fine lines that one might trace with a fingertip, were it possible. These tiles once wrapped walls and domes, turning a prayer hall or a bathhouse into a measured, visual poem. The glazed surfaces reflect light in calm, controlled ways. They were designed to quiet the eye as much as to please it. Ceramics tell us about trade and taste. A particular clay or glaze might indicate where a bowl was made, and where similar shapes appear in different cities. We see the movement of craftsmen and styles. Imagine a simple cooking pot, thick and darkened by use. It speaks not of palaces, but of dinner tables where families gathered. The presence of finely painted ceramics alongside humble earthenware in the same neighborhood can tell us about economic mixing, neighbors sharing meals, different incomes inhabiting the same street, tastes moving gently between classes. Manuscripts, marginalia, and palimpsests, writing as layering paper and ink survive in quieter ways. Imagine an old manuscript, its margins crowded with tiny notes written by more than one hand across decades. Scholars find pleasure not only in the main text, but in those marginalia, the idle comment, the practical correction, the small drawing of a flower. These notes reveal how readers engaged with texts, what passages were underlined, which lines provoked private reflection. Palimpsests, parchments, scraped and reused, are especially poetic. One text lies beneath another, a memory written over a former memory. Infrared and ultraviolet imaging can reveal the older writing like a faint voice beneath the primary speech. Libraries and archives, when they survive, are slow reservoirs of human thought. WAQF deeds, family registers, and court records create a tacit map of lives. A WAQF document, written in formal script and sealed with a humble stamp, tells of a fountain or a school established for the public good. Court records can be granular and intimate. A merchant's dispute over quality, a mother's petition for a child's custody, a tenant's disagreement over rent. These pages allow us to enter domestic concerns that do not make it into grand chronicles. When records are lost to fire, to war, or to time, archaeologists and historians must read other signs, building foundations, patterns of household, refuse, the bones of meals. Sound and silence, music, coffee houses and oral traditions. Not all culture survives as objects. Much of it survives in patterns of sound and in traditions that passed from mouth to ear. Imagine yourself sliding into a shadowed coffeehouse in a quiet quarter. There is a low, steady murmur, conversation, the soft clink of cups, the scratch of a pen as someone records debts in a little book. Coffee houses were spaces of gentler sociability, places where stories were told, chess played, and news exchanged. They were not always centers of political agitation. Often they were simply sites of shared attention, where rhythm and routine framed the day. Music and oral storytelling are slipperier to pin down, but they leave traces. Instruments, the oud, the ney, small percussion, are found in depictions and occasionally as artifacts. The musical modes and the tuning systems that survive in recordings and in modern practice carry within them subtle echoes of earlier modes of listening. Story forms. 2. Move across time. Shadow plays like Karogs and Hasavat, and popular tales recited in marketplaces and in private gatherings. All carry structural motifs that can be traced back through oral genealogies. Imagine a storyteller pausing for effect, drawing a slow breath, and letting the crowd absorb a phrase. That pause, preserved in living tradition, is as much a remnant as a shard. Urban layers, streets, houses, and hidden passages cities are palimpsest. Walk through an old quarter and you often cross thresholds that mark historical change. A street whose paving stones date from centuries ago may be layered with later canals, with Ottoman-era Hans inns inserted into older Roman plans. Imagine yourself descending into a cellar beneath a Han and finding shelving marks where goods were stored, or tracing the soft curve of an arched doorway, whose keystone bears the faint inscription of a long-gone craftsman. Some urban mysteries are small and domestic, a sealed room discovered during renovation, behind which lie objects carefully wrapped and placed as if in a small time capsule, pottery fragments forming a neat pile that suggests intentional disposal, a hidden cistern whose cool air still smells faintly of damp plaster. Other mysteries are larger, a lost neighborhood whose map appears only as a dotted line in a 7th plan, or a caravanserai that survives only as a sunken foundation beneath modern shops. Archaeologists approach these puzzles with patient reconstruction, mapping, sampling, and, when it is necessary, careful excavation to preserve rather than to disturb domestic objects. The quiet intimacy of everyday things, much of what archaeology reveals of the Ottoman household is modest and quietly eloquent. Look for spindle whorls, small, round stones, or clay discs used in spinning thread, and you find a daily practice of textile production in the home. Simple iron nails, flattened and reused, speak of practical thrift. Soap-making hearths, hearthstones blackened by repeated use, hint at a domestic routine of cleanliness performed without fuss. Small cosmetic jars, bone comb fragments, and the occasional gaming piece show the private life of leisure and care. Foodways are especially revealing. Carbonized seeds and grains found in hearths and refuse pits indicate what people ate and how they prepared it. Olive pits and grape seeds tell of preserved tastes. Cooking vessels carry soot patterns that help researchers deduce whether a pot was used for long stews or quick frying. The presence of imported foodstuffs, a shard of porcelain from China, a spice listed in a household inventory, shows connections extending far beyond a single neighborhood. Textiles and dyes. The traveling colors textile fragments are fragile, but when they survive, they are intimate messengers. Imagine a small piece of embroidered cloth, its threads faded, but still holding a trace of color. Dyes reveal trade routes. Indigo suggests maritime exchange with regions that cultivate particular plants. Madder and saffron indicate networks of regional production. The techniques of weaving and embroidery reveal apprenticeship patterns and household economies. Certain motifs may indicate regional identity, religious sentiment, or familial taste. Textiles also preserve stories of movement. A piece of silk might have been traded from Bursa, dyed in Aleppo, and stitched into a garment in Salonika. As these threads cross the empire, they carry not only color but design ideas and social signals. Religious material culture, mosques, mausolea, and wax religious sites are often the most visible anchors of cultural memory. Imagine the interior of a small mosque. Its mihrab, a gentle niche that focuses attention without force. Its carpet worn into soft channels where generations have knelt. Mausolea, or turbs, contain layers of ritual and remembrance. They are often modest buildings with careful tilework and soft lighting that invite reflection. The WAQF records linked to such sites are especially informative. They enumerate the fountains, schools, and soup kitchens that sustain neighborhoods. These documents reveal a system where pious giving structured public life in a calm, predictable manner. The ensemble of sensory clusa, true pleasure of archaeology and cultural history, is assembling an ensemble of senses from disparate strands. A tile's cool surface suggests a tiled mosque. A recipe in a household inventory suggests a scent that once hovered in a kitchen. A WAQF document suggests a fountain whose water once set a neighborhood's rhythm. Imagine piecing these clues together, like a quiet mosaic. The result is not a single, unambiguous picture but a textured portrait made of many small, confident strokes, lost records, gaps, and the ethics of speculation. Not everything is recoverable. Libraries burn, buildings collapse, and private archives are dispersed. These absences are themselves a kind of historical fact. When records are missing, historians and archaeologists proceed with careful restraint. They make hypotheses grounded in comparison and material evidence, but they avoid filling gaps with dramatic guesses. Speculation can be gentle and provisional. It is likely that, rather than it must be. This tone keeps the past respectful and the present honest. There are also ethical questions. Excavation permanently alters a site. Looting destroys context. The modern handling of finds, who keeps them, how they are conserved, whether they are displayed with respect, requires a slow, humane approach. Think of artifacts as members of a family. They deserve careful tending, not sudden display. Contemporary conservation practices emphasize stabilization, documentation, and public dialogue. Communities that live above or near archaeological sites are included in decisions about heritage. Their living practices are part of the ongoing story. Continuities and modern eco's many cultural threads continue in surprising ways. Recipes carried in family notebooks, the pattern of a rug woven today, a local festival that kept its calendar for centuries. These are living echoes of the Ottoman past. Walk through a modern market and you may find a vendor using an old measure, a dish served in a small cafe that traces its spices to Ottoman cookery, or a neighborhood whose street pattern still follows an older plan. These continuities are calming. They show that history is not a foreign country, but a series of gentle transformations. A final quiet mystery, the unread letter as we close this segment. Imagine finding an old, sealed letter tucked in a trunk beneath a floorboard. The ink has faded, the edges are eaten by time, but the envelope is intact. You open it slowly and find a short note, a list of items, a line about a son going to sea, a mention of a small loan. It is not a grand proclamation. It is domestic, private, and immediate. Its power is subtle. It connects you to a specific day, a specific hand, and a specific breath of someone who lived long before you. Archaeology and cultural history are full of such quiet documents, not always whole, never entirely decisive, but always intimate. Social life, elites, and contrasts, palaces, public rituals, and private habits. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a wide stone plaza, just beyond a palace gate. The plaza is cool beneath your feet. Fountains breathe in regular size, and the air carries a soft mixture of citrus and warmed leather. In the distance, the palace's tiled domes rest like smooth stones against the sky. This segment asks you to step lightly between two worlds that often occupied the same city. The ordinary, repeating rhythms we have already met. Courtyards, markets, looms, and the parallel, sometimes divergent rhythms of those who held power, wealth, or formal rank. We will move slowly through houses of eminence and through public rituals, always attentive to small sensory details that make these lives feel close and real. A note on contrast, not judgment before we begin. Notice the rhythm of contrast itself. This is not a story of good versus bad. It is a study in different technologies of living, how space is used, how time is ordered, how tastes and obligations vary. These differences change how people experience comfort, risk, and reputation. Saying that elites have larger rooms is factual. Describing how a silk curtain muffles a courtyard's sound helps you feel the difference. Keep the phrase in mind as we go. The rhythm of their lives, different from the rhythm of ordinary days, still beats in human measures. Palaces and residences, space, silence, and ornament approach. A noble residence, and you notice three immediate things: scale, enclosure, and deliberate quiet. The architecture is meant to separate, to hold private worlds within public ones. Large gates open onto narrow, shaded passages leading to inner courtyards. Imagine walking beneath a carved wooden canopy into a private garden whose planting is geometric and careful. Fountains are placed so that their sound rises gently, providing a background hush that renders speech more confidential. Trees are pruned into regular shapes. Paths are swept clean. Interior decoration is a slow conversation with materials. Carpets are thick and layered. Their pile makes footsteps almost inaudible. Walls are covered in tiles, painted wood or plastered, with subtle colors. Lamps hang from painted ceilings, each one chosen so that the pool of light falls where people will sit, not on the floor. Surfaces are made to be touched, silk drapes, polished brass, the cool tile of a divan. These textures reduce abrupt noise and encourage languid movement. In an elite household, time is sometimes measured by ceremonial rhythms, a scheduled audience, the arrival of a foreign envoy, the taking of tea at a precise hour, each ritual performed with the calm deliberation of a practiced gesture. Domestic staff and the quiet division of labor. Large homes depend on networks of people who coordinate invisibly. Servants, attendants, cooks, and stewards orchestrate daily life in a way that keeps the noble family comfortable without demanding their constant attention. Imagine a set of hands moving silently at dusk, replacing cushions, reheating soup, adjusting a lamp. Those hands have their own routines, taut and refined. They know which room requires a thicker carpet in winter, and which vase must be removed for an upcoming ceremony. That division of labor creates social distance, but it also creates delicate dependencies and relationships. Long-serving attendants develop knowledge that borders on intimacy. The small preferences, the hours when a master wishes to work, the way a hostess prefers her coffee. For many workers, this domestic choreography is steady employment and social security. For others, it is a reminder of rank. The rhythm of their lives is shaped by the needs of those they serve, and their time is counted in the anticipations of others. Ceremony and display, the art of being seen. Public ritual is a primary medium through which elites express status. Imagine a procession moving out from a palace. The muffled footfalls of uniformed men, banners that catch a patient wind, and the careful spacing of attendants so that each figure appears framed and measured. Ceremonies are choreography. Each bow and every placement of a tray has been practiced. They communicate order and continuity, a public statement that life will proceed with predictable decorum. Guests are received in salons, arranged for conversation and visual effect. Seating is not random. The order communicates rank. Food is offered in courses designed to be looked at as much as tasted. Small, ornate dishes presented on trays. Fruit arranged with formal symmetry. Sweets shaped into gentle cones and dusted with powdered sugar. The pace of a meal at a high table is deliberate. People converse in controlled tones. Laughter is tempered. Even the act of giving alms or commissioning a fountain is calculated to appear as a quiet obligation, rather than a boast. The public good performed with an appearance of modesty. Education, scholarship, and the cultivation of taste. Elite households often invest in extended education and in forms of cultural capital. Imagine a room lined with books and manuscripts, the air faintly scented with old paper and beeswax. Young members of elite families studied languages, calligraphy, poetry, and the legal and religious texts that will prepare them for public life. Tutors teach with patient insistence. Copy this line repeatedly. Learn to form the letter correctly. Recite the passage until it sits in memory. Music lessons are structured similarly. Scales are practiced slowly, finger by finger, until the movements become second nature. Scholarship often receives patronage. An eminent household may host poets, calligraphers, or religious scholars, offering stipends or a room where they can write. These patrons shape tastes. A particular poet's verse becomes fashionable because of a patron's endorsement. A certain style of tilework spreads because a wealthy patron commissions it. Patronage is a form of cultural investment that travels outward, influencing public taste and the material culture of cities. Women of rank, space, influence, and quiet networks. Women in elite households manage complex spheres of domestic and social life. Imagine a woman in a secluded inner chamber, the hush of her sitting room softened by layers of textile and the gentle sound of a fountain beyond the wall. Her influence is exercised through the management of household rituals, the arrangement of marriages and alliances, and the cultivation of literary and artistic taste. She may receive female guests in an inner salon, discuss family matters with calm authority, and direct the training of daughters in embroidery, reading, and social skills. At times, these inner spaces become centers of informal power. Women negotiate dowries, coordinate charitable giving, and keep networks of correspondence that pass information and favor between households. Their world looks private, but its echoes reach public life through the marriages they arrange and the patronage they provide. The rhythm of their days is less public, but no less strategic. An afternoon spent instructing a daughter in calligraphy is also an investment in future alliances. Politics as social dance, council, bureaucracy, and the gentlemanly art of appointment power. In the empire is administered through a slow choreography of appointments, favors, and duties. Imagine a council room where men fold their robes and speak in measured phrases. Decisions are often made through networks of recommendation and recorded petitions. Offices are not simply places of policy. They are centers of social exchange. A post brings not only the authority to act, but the duty to distribute small favors, a job, a waiver, or a mediated settlement. These exchanges are the everyday economy of governance. Bureaucracy itself is a large, human system of paperwork and ritual. Scribes keep registers, clerks file petitions, couriers carry folded papers between offices. The tonal quality of a petition, the way a name is written, and the respect with which a title is used, matters. Formal handwriting and seals maintain a rhythm that is both practical and symbolic. The state functions through these rhythms, which are meant to be predictable and calming. Petitions submitted on particular days. Tax tallies kept anew each season. Tax collectors visiting according to established routes. Military life and the Janissary corps. Discipline and domesticity. The empire's military institutions add another thread to urban life. The Janissaries, for instance, are a distinct social group with their own internal rhythms. Training drills that echo the repetition we have seen in craft. Communal meals, and a kind of professional solidarity. Imagine a drill yard where recruits move in coordinated steps, the sound of boots and commands falling into a regular tempo. Their life is disciplined and collective. Their identities are shaped by ritual, uniform, and the shared experience of service. Yet many soldiers also maintain domestic ties. Some serve temporarily, returning to family. Others marry and root themselves near garrisons. Their rhythms mingle with ordinary life, soldiers buying in the bazaar, attending prayers, and participating in neighborhood festivals. Military presence is thus both a public signal and a domestic reality, felt in ceremonies but also in small interactions. Wealth, consumption, and the gentle problem of visibility consumption patterns reflect social position. An elite household might display imported porcelain, a carved wooden screen from a distant city, or a small collection of rare books. These objects are not meant to be ostentatious in a brash sense. Rather, they are curated to indicate refined taste. The arrangement of objects is deliberate. A guest is led to notice a certain object at a particular moment, and the owner's modest comment about its provenance serves both as information and as subtle self-position. This culture of taste produces gentle social pressures. Households emulate each other in slow waves. A certain pattern of embroidery becomes fashionable. A particular poet's verse is cited in salons. A style of tile spreads across neighborhoods. The competition is often refined, not coarse. It shapes local economies. Demand for specific weavers, calligraphers, and tile makers increases as tastes shift subtly. Charity, works, and the social obligations of affluence-lit wealth is frequently channeled into public goods through wakefs and direct acts of charity. Imagine a fountain whose inscription names a donor. It is designed to provide refreshment and to express continuity with the past. Schools, soup kitchens, and caravans often owe their maintenance to such endowments. These acts are practical. They provide needed services, but they are also moral statements, linking personal wealth to communal responsibility. Charitable giving is part of social identity. An endowed soup kitchen ensures that a neighborhood will be fed during lean seasons. An endowed madrasa ensures that boys can learn to read for decades. The long-term stability of these institutions creates a slow rhythm in which private wealth sustains public life. The consequences of power, hard edges, quiet aftermaths. Power can produce calm order, but it can also create hard edges. When taxes increase, households of all sizes feel the tightening. When requisitions are made, a family might give up a cow or a bundle of grain. Political decisions ripple outward. People adapt through practical measures, postponing a wedding, borrowing from a neighbor, or tightening household accounts. These adjustments are the social equivalent of mending a worn shoe, small, attentive, and often collective. Occasionally, conflicts produce sharper consequences. A rebellious town may be punished, or a poorly judged campaign can displace entire communities. Even then, the descriptions we use are deliberate and careful. We speak of villages that found their populations diminished, of markets that moved, of families that adjusted their plans. Our focus is on the lived effects, the absence at a table, the quiet of a market stall, left unfilled, rather than on spectacle or sensational detail. Elite leisure, travel, gardens, and the art of slow pleasure leisure among the elite is structured by time and place. Pleasure is often gardened, literally and figuratively. Imagine a private garden with paths that curve slowly, pavilions that offer shade and a view, and a small heralded pool whose surface mirrors the sky. Walks or unhurried conversation is measured. Reading aloud becomes a pleasure, a way to spend a long afternoon. Travel, too, is composed in slow gestures. A carefully planned journey to a summer residence on the Bosporus, a guest invited for a week of music and poetry, a hunting party that returns in the evening with stories retold over tea. These are not extravagant spectacles, but carefully arranged episodes of refined life. Comparisons with everyday life overlaps in echoes. Despite the contrasts, the lives of elites and ordinary people overlap in many small ways. Food circulates. A favored fruit may be planted in an elite garden and later sold in the market. Craftsmen trained in modest workshops may find patrons among the elite. Rituals echo across classes. The same prayers are recited in a palace chamber and in a humble courtyard. The rhythm of their lives differs in scale and in certain luxuries. But fundamentally, both revolve around the same human anchors: shelter, nourishment, social ties, and time. A calming note on mortality and fate. No discussion of high rank can avoid the fact that wealth does not make one immune to loss. Illness, accidents, and political misfortune touch all layers of society. Here, we speak in soft language. A household mourned the passing of a matron and adjusted its rituals. A family fled a district and found new neighborly ties elsewhere. The emperor's courts and a small village both hold funerals. Both fold grief into daily continuity. The rhythm of their lives includes these pauses, acknowledged with measured rites and communal support. From past rhythms to present rest, imagine yourself once more in that shaded courtyard, the fig tree's leaves making a soft, steady whisper overhead. The lamp on the low table breathes an amber circle. Breathe with it. Let the inhale and the exhale match the gentle pulse of the city you have been visiting in thought. The market's low murmur, the measured clack of a loom, the distant call to prayer that folds the day into small, calm acts. These are the familiar threads we have followed, the rhythm of their lives, woven together into a single quiet cloth. What stays with you now are small things: the way a pot's lip is worn smooth by hands over years, the feel of a woven shawl folded across a knee, the hush of a caravanserai at dawn. These details are not dramatic. They are anchoring. They allow us to cross time softly, to sense how ordinary people lived, worked, and found comfort. The past as companion, not catechism. History here has been a companion, not a lesson. It is a set of rhythms you can observe and adopt as calm practices. Measured speech, careful tending of shared spaces, the small courtesy of offering tea, the slow counting of gains and losses. These habits are neither exotic nor remote. They are familiar patterns dressed in other clothes. Notice them for what they are: practical responses to weather, to work, to appetite, to obligation. The repeated acts, fetching water, mending, cliff, reciting a stanza, become a kind of slow music you can carry with you after this listening ends. Contrast without judgment. You have also seen contrasts: the quiet enclosure of palaces, the layered work of servants, the discreet choreography of ceremonial life. These differences are a part of the landscape, not a moral scorecard. They reveal how humans arrange space and time according to needs and resources. The rhythm of a palace is measured in audiences and patronage. The rhythm of a household is measured in loaves and laundry. Both are human tempos. Both are bound by the same fragile things: weather, health, trust, and the passing of years. Fragile continuous zone of the gentlest discoveries is continuity. Recipes simmer in family kitchens long after court menus change. Tiles cracked and repaired still reflect the same light. A small fountain funded by a WAQF centuries ago still cools a passerby if it survives. These continuities are quiet caretakers of memory. They remind us that history is not only a sequence of events, but a set of practices that can be sustained, reshaped, and loved into the present. Sorrow, loss, and practical resilience. There were sorrows along the way: poor harvests, illness, the slow disappearance of a neighbor from a doorway. We treated these facts with calm language and careful restraint, focusing on consequences rather than spectacle. People adjusted, a wedding postponed, a loan repaid late, a son apprenticed in a new town. Those small acts of resilience, borrowing, mending, reorganizing, are the everyday answers to larger troubles. They are the quiet human ways of continuing. What you can take back if You want a soft, practical takeaway from this evening's journey. Consider a few small habits that echo the past's calming rhythms. Keep a small space orderly. A swept corner and a folded cloth create mental breathing room. Mark time with gentle rituals. A shared cup of tea, a read paragraph, a brief walk. These are anchors. Value. Slow learning. Skill comes from repetition. Practice. A small task until it becomes restful rather than stressful. Make small acts of care routine. A neighbor's favor, an offered bread, the mending of a garment. These are the civic works of daily life. A final image to carry into sleep now. Imagine the city easing into night. Lamps are lit one by one. The market shutters close. The looms slow their clack. In a small courtyard, someone smooths a rug and tucks a child into a cot. Outside, the distant sea emits a slow, indifferent rhythm. The past folds into the present, like a well-worn coverlet. Let that coverlet settle over you. As you listen, allow your breathing to slow, matching the slow, steady cadences you heard. The caravan's quiet procession, the loom's repetitive song, the fountain's measured sigh. Each breath is a small stitch. Each exhale lets another tension go. Don't rest now. Let the images, the tiles, the markets, the silk, the fountain's curve, drift like soft lights behind your eyes. The past is a gentle companion at your shoulder, steady and non-demanding. You may sleep. Your body and mind have permission to unbind from the day. Good night.